Beedrill is our next lineup for basic only decks, and unfortunately, there's not much selection for Beedrill and basic only. First off, we're gonna check out Beedrill. So Twin Needle has colorless attack, flip 2 coins, deals 0, 30, or even 60 if you're lucky. So coin flip kind of luck attack, and then a poison sting. This is where the main attack comes in. 40 damage off of coin flip heads. It will poison the defending Pokemon. So that is pretty good. And that is the attacking move that we're going to use most of the time for this deck. So what should we pair up with Beedrill to make it viably competitive? A common answer to Beedrill of pairing up is probably Venusaur, since Energy Trance does move around grass energy a lot more efficient, and Venusaur may seem to be somewhat of like a decent supporter, but unfortunately it gets the short end of the stick for not being an efficient attacker as we thought it would to pair up with Beedrill. So yeah, not the best candidate. How about Nidoking? That's fresh for grass energy, double color. May not be that great since Electabuzz have the same attack, but it's decent enough. Then HP and that toxic attack, ooh, that it does seem pretty handy at times. Unfortunately, this is a little bit too much, and again, it's Stage Tuesday I have to focus on. Not quite ideal to power up both of them at the same moment. Or even, how about Electro? A buzz Pokemon power that can actually provide Beedrill double rainbow energy? Yeah, unfortunately, that is a little bit bonkers just for kind of not the best attack for a stage 2, so yeah, Electro for that cost of a prize card, maybe not as ideal, but does seem kind of pretty speedy off the bat, but still not as a Beedrill competitive build. So what does pair up well with Beedrill? Well, there is one build that plenty of other base up mons have contend and made some sort of success with competitive builds in base up only, and that is Alakazam, the stage 2 mon that actually has a Pokemon powered damage swap where you can actually move damage counters onto Pokemon, so you can actually use Pokemon Center to heal up, and that will actually benefit Beedrill from actually attaching energy, and soon you actually get off that poison sting, and that would be brutal for the opponent to deal with. And the only thing that can actually benefit with that is, of course, Chansey, our big basic mon that has 120 HP, 1 retreat cost for some reason, and this is our mains damage soak that is gonna take in when Beedrill actually takes damage. You can get damage swap onto Chansey or multiple Chanseys that you place on your bench and just heal a Pokemon Center, and that's really gonna disrupt your opponent big time after dealing who knows how much 300 damage after, and not even knocking out a single mon on your bench or even on your side, and just really disrupting your opponent and just stalling it out, healing the damage, and hopefully you can actually get some knockouts with Beedrill. Eventually they will lose to Dead Gale or even just by taking prizes. That is the general gist of the overview with damage swap Beedrill, and we're going to call this deck Switchabee because Beedrill has free retreat and you don't have to rely on switch when it comes to switching out your attacker. So yeah, we're going to get into the deck list right now. Starting out with 3 copies of Weedle, 2 copies of Kakuna, 2 copies of Beedrill, 3 copies of Chansey, 4 copies of Abra. 1 copy of Kadabra. 3 copies of Alakazam. 3 copies of Pokemon Center. 1 copy of Super Energy Removal just in case if the opponent's ahead of you. 3 copies of Professor Oak. 3 copies of Pokemon Breeder. 2 Pokemon Trader. 2 Switch just in case if they gust a win Alakazam or Chansey. 3 energy retrieval, 2 maintenance, getting cards that you don't need at the moment. 2 last, 3 computer search, 3 item finder, really good cards. 2 DCE, double colorless. And finally, to round off, 13 grass energy. And yeah, that should be enough. Like I said, Poison Sting is that main attack, it's consistent and has a chance to poison, and that really can disrupt the opponent to actually force to switch, and you know, it's just going to continue this vicious cycle until a Pokemon gets knocked down because of poison, right? And poison is just one of the best stats in the game. You can just take damage between turns. 10 damage is nothing to scoff about. So yeah, that poison damage, if you're lucky, yeah, it can really devastate the opponent big time. And the reason why I put the Kakuna in this deck is because we're going to attack on the first turn or possibly the second turn since we use double colors, and that Twin Needle isn't bad per se. It's just based off of coin flip, and coin flip attacks are not unreliable. So it's better to evolve into Kakuna. You can Pokemon Breeder and hopefully get off the grass energy. That's probably in mid game of the whole game. And Poison Powder is still a pretty good, decent attacks for 2 grass energy. You can use that Stiffen attack where it can prevent damage. So that's also a nice addition with the DCE. And the reason why I only have 1 copy of Kadabra in this deck is because I just want to evolve into Alakazam as soon as possible. But at the same time, you can add more Kadabras just so you can have a survivability chance with Abra. And it's probably better to do so. I just didn't do it for this deck. Probably because I added Super Energy Removal so you can disrupt your opponent as efficient. You can still add more Kadabras though. So this deck actually fair was against Gyarados since Gyarados does have a grass weakness, and Gyarados is pretty prevalent in base set only, especially in Rain Dance and its own archetype with damage swaps and with this archetype right here. And yeah, it's also a slow methodical deck where you don't have to power up your Gyarados and fall from a Magikarp unless you're playing Rain Dance obviously. And yeah, this does have advantage over Gyarados. This deck actually goes toe to toe against Haymaker since beedrill does have the resistance of Hitmonchan, fighting resistance, pretty huge on that. And it has no weakness because of like Haymaker doesn't have a fire type unless you're running Charmeleon. That could be a different scenario, but yeah, most of the time they're not running Charmeleon. They're mostly running Farfetch or Doduo, or even Chansey sometimes. Still, this can do pretty well against Haymaker unless you're starting off with a bad hand or starting off with Abra or even Weedle. That could be pretty bad. Weedle can still poison, but still, yeah, on the first turn you're most likely going to lose if that's the case. Therefore, you need to evolve your beedrill and Alakazam as soon as possible, ASAP, so you can prevent that from happening. Crazy or not, I think beedrill might be one of the best or the best damage swap archetype I've actually cooked up, because this bee can resist fighting and free retreat, Now Gyarados can resist fighting and has 100 HP, but he also evolved from a Magikarp, so that Magikarp is not going to do much. And nothing resists grass, so you can still take over Gyarados because of Gyarados' weakness. And if you think about it, this can pretty dominating as like a tier 1 kind of deck going on. I don't know, I just want to congratulate myself for just building a deck off of beedrill to be competitive, and I actually finally found a home for beedrill to see some valuable play. Oh, it's a pretty typical archetype, I must say so myself. So that is Switchabee, an underrated damage swap archetype that I cooked up, and I'm so happy about this. I'm making this video. Just gotta give some love for beedrill. I realized the other base set only decks that I made for beedrill, Toxic Tangle, I think. Oh no, that was not Toxic Tangle. It's Deadly Stinger actually. That one, not a great archetype with like Coughing and Tangela. That was horrible, you know, barely beedrill focus. Yeah, just focus on beedrill is probably the best methodical kind of line. And I realized just seeing from the champ and, you know, Gyarados, yeah, I could understand beedrill just doing the same thing as well. I also forgot to mention against Buzzap. Zapdos, honestly, that could still go toe-to-toe. Again, Zapdos is a donk deck, so it really depends on the scenario. If you already have your beedrill set up, or Alakazam, or even Chansey, just soaking all that damage, right? Zapdos is just a kind of risky kind of thing that I haven't really tested out around. But still, I think Zapdos is a pretty strong archetype that can be pretty difficult to face. Anyways, let me know what kind of deck list you want to hear from base set only, and hopefully I can make it sooner or later. And also let me know what kind of beedrill, you know, archetype you want to see. Hopefully this is just like the last, because that's pretty much I could think about with beedrill. This is by far quality, the farthest it can be competitive. Yeah, but hey, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. See you guys later. Bye.
Oh my god!
Nope.
Hold on,